True. All right, and we are officially live in the flesh. How are you, Ninja? How are you, sir?
I am doing great, Anthony. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I'm just trying to figure my life out over here. It's hot out. I was all over the place, and I finally got everything set up, and we're good. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to get into, we have a lot of interesting things. You're a very interesting guy with a golden voice, I should say. So people are going to be really serenaded today. Very much.
How's it going, great community?
Oh my God, he's already starting. People are going to go crazy. But you have a lot of interesting things to share, a lot of unique perspectives, and some stuff that that you've done that
I think it's lagging really quick there, Anthony.
All right, I know what happened. Are we
okay,
good?
We're back. We're back. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Sorry about that, everyone. I disconnected from the hotspot for a moment. Jesus Christ, no idea why. But we should be good now. Big shout out to Michael Wong just now. You can see in the comment. He actually just showed up. We just hung out for maybe 20, 30 minutes over in Greenville. So we had a good time chatting real quick. So cool guy there. Who else we have here before we get into it? We got Chaz Money Minutes, Ninja, Anthony, I'm in. Lonnie, what's going on? Amzy, Woodsy, Mountain Bob,
hey,
Joe Brett, all mi gente. Oh my Lord, we got a million people in here. What's going on? Keith broke it. Yes, you broke it, Keith. Every time you come in here, you break things. Anthony said, "I'm not lagging. I'm just thinking." Yeah, that's what happens when I think. Everything stops for a moment. Isn't that great? Appreciate that, Chad, for the 5K. Congrats, appreciate it. Good day, Mr. Potato. Yeah. What's up, Don Kim? Cherry Blossoms are back. Cool. Good to know. All right. So, with all the shenanigans out of the way, and now I ruined everything because we whatnot.
No,
Let's get into. I appreciate it. Let's get into the man in front of me. This is Ninja. So you guys may be unfamiliar with what Ninja looks like, but you might have seen him in a lot of comment sections, and you might have seen him in the Venture Capital Discord, which is linked in the description if you're not joined already. And he always chimes in with very interesting insights, backed by a lot of experience, and usually has unique perspectives on a lot of different things that I like to read. And he's not just out here to be negative on anything. He's like this. Yeah, I think you're right, but actually, I think there might be something a little better, something like that. So I appreciate his perspectives on a lot of things. And the first way that, at least I think we knew of, like we talked before, but for some reason the first connection we had in my mind was I made a video maybe 8 months ago talking about like Hilton, how to earn 1 million Hilton points and how to redeem 1 million Hilton points for like the best value possible. And one of those redemptions that happened to be, I think, over a cent per point was the Oceana Santa Monica, which is actually right here in Santa Monica. And it's an LXR Hilton hotel. And it was a good redemption, but you saw that video and you said, you know what, I'm going to book that stay, and you did. So I wanted to ask you first and foremost, how was this stay at the Oceana Santa Monica?
So first and foremost, thank you for that recommendation. I think it's super key for anybody who's collecting the Hilton free night certificates to find good value out of those somewhere domestically without having to go somewhere like the Maldives or really somewhere that's going to take you, $1,000 cash to fly somewhere or a ton of your points to get there. So being in California, the Oceana Santa Monica LXR was a super, super luxurious hotel. From everything, all the pictures that you're displaying right here is exactly how it looked, from the view of the ocean, the way that the rooms are sort of set up. And what was really great is this was actually a place for me to use my free night certificate because it did have the standard room rate where you can actually redeem those. And not only from the moment when the bellhop captain had met me there to the moment where, at the very end, everything just felt like truly 5-star service. Everybody, you know, by the end of the trip, the bellhop knew my name by last name. You know, we were really chopping it up there towards the end. But yeah, what's really great about this property is they give you a lot that's included with it as sort of amenities. And when I say that, you know, included with your stay there, you get beach cruisers. So beach cruisers as in the little bikes so you can actually ride down to the beach. So it's great if you're traveling with a partner or traveling with kids to have access to that. And I really think the nice golden feature that they don't really talk about, at least too blatantly there on the website, is actually utilizing the free chauffeur service. So they actually have, it's not Lyft or Uber, but it's their own private service that they hire out. And they pick you up in a, you know, a decked out black Suburban. They take you anywhere within a 1 to 1.5 mile radius. So it's great, you know, when you're going to a nice dinner, because there's so many places there on the beach of Santa Monica to really just get, you know, kind of that service really from start to finish. And what I really liked about this place is it was actually really easy to get an upgrade in terms of, you know, we always talk about once you are staying at a Hilton, it's always, you know, what can I get as an upgrade? And as an Aspire card holder, allowed me to be a Diamond member, they upgraded me from that standard room over to an ocean view room. And because this was during peak hours in the summer, it was actually still, and I was really surprised I got standard room rate for it. You know, the room after taxes and fees, because you know, we got to look at what's the bottom line, was about $1,800 if that was the upgraded room. So I absolutely, you know, it hit a couple, you know, checked a couple boxes there. Number one, the value was extremely high there. And then number two, I mean, it was just really one of the best service experience I've had at any Hilton stay.
Wow. That's so crazy. See, I love when all those added things are, like you said, like it's not necessarily on the website. Like that reminds me of that stay in the Hyatt I did in Savannah. I didn't realize there was a driver that would like drive you within like a mile radius. But you said there was a beach, like somebody that would pick you up. But you said there's also like beach cruisers you could just for free.
Little bikes, yeah. They let you rent the bikes, so it's literally a 5-minute bike ride to go down to the beach from there. It's really cool. It's a really great experience, and it was a great way to actually celebrate my girlfriend's birthday. So it really paid off. That checked another box there. We got to do a lot of cool things that we wouldn't normally do and spend, you know, a couple grand on just for one night. But yeah, that was it.
Forget it. And so you used a free night certificate, and I forgot, did you say it's more than one night or just one night you did?
Just one night there. So I have family in California. I was already there, so it kind of worked out. But I mean, even if you were to make that a one night stay, because it was me deciding between the Oceania and the Conrad that's out there. Or I'm sorry, maybe it's the Waldorf Astoria, the other one that's in Beverly Hills. Someone's going to probably correct me here in the comments, but the Oceana one, and I'm really glad I made that decision to go there as well.
Wow, that's really cool. I like to hear that. And you said you were upgraded to an ocean view room. Like how good was the room, would you say? Because I've never been to an LXR property. Because you know, I have a goal to hit all the brands, and I really want to stay at an LXR one day. So, do you feel like the LXR was different from any other brands that you kind of stayed in?
Yeah, I do primarily stay at a lot of Hilton. So throughout the Hilton portfolio, I do think LXR is definitely up there. I mean, it was a full suite. It had its own separate section for where, you know, you have the king bed overlooking out to the ocean, as well as just a really luxurious bathroom. I mean, everything from start to finish, there's just plenty of room to move. It had a nice little patio on the side as well, so it was nice to sit outside while the weather was great. Again, just a really great overall experience.
That's cool, man. I love to hear that. And so have you? So I wanted to mention too, because Anthony over here said, hypothetically speaking, if you have like 8 or 9 certificates and can't burn them as fast as you can earn them, where would you go on the East Coast, West Coast, internationally? Would you use a lot of them at the place you stayed at, or do you have like other recommendations, you think?
Yeah, I mean, so this is where I guess the title kind of comes into play, right? Because also, since you have expiration dates on those, you might plan to use those at certain locations. And again, finding the standard roommate at some of the top locations might take just a little bit more of research and spending some time finding that. But as far as East Coast, I haven't used any of the FNCs on the East Coast, but there are some properties. I know there's one in Washington, D.C. I'm blanking whether it's the Waldorf or the Conrad that I really want to take a look at and stay at. I've seen they've had standard room rates. And actually for the New Orleans meetup coming up here, I will be staying at the Roosevelt with one of those, even though, you know, it's just really, it's funny. The stay there is 2 weeks before it expires, and I don't have any sort of larger FNCs that I'm going to be using between then. And since I'm sitting on about 4 right now across my Hilton business card, my Hilton Aspire, and some of the subs from last summer. The Hilton subs last summer were awesome when they had, you know, I got one on the no annual fee Hilton card, 15K on the business card. The actual business card came with one on the sub, and then the Aspire. And now I'm working on trying to grab another one before June 30th with the changes with the Hilton Biz card.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yes. So you think you're going to be able to hit like that 15K spend by June 30th? A lot of people are upset about that, you know.
Yeah, I was planning on sort of extending it out to sort of align with the other certificates that I would have through my Aspire. And what I'm going to do is probably upgrade my no honors one into my no annual fee honors card to another Aspire, because you kind of want to time the subs around the same way. Like I could have hit the sub on a couple of those cards last summer a little bit earlier, but it made more sense to sort of delay it intentionally, knowing that the certificates would have a little bit more time. So it took a little bit of just making sure to be a little strategic with how I was even earning those, knowing that I would be redeeming them at a certain time period throughout this year.
Got it. That makes sense. Now, I wonder if it's still a thing, because I remember when I was trying to redeem my free night certificate at the Mills House, or actually it was a different place. I think I was trying to use it in Nashville first. I realized that, like you said, like they expire, so you have to kind of choose when you're going to use them wisely. And if you don't, sometimes you lose track of expiration dates. And I think it was expiring like a month after, or expiring a month before I was actually going to go somewhere. I was like, I wonder if I could call them to extend it. I was like, I wonder if that's possible. So I called them, and after a little bit of like trying to figure out if they understood what I was saying, they eventually got to a point where like, yes, there's actually a new program, which was like a couple of years ago now, where they were like, we actually can extend your free night certificate by 2 months. By 2 weeks. So 2 weeks is as long as they can do. I haven't tried it since then. I wonder if they've upped it now to longer, but at least I know I've been able to extend mine by 2 weeks. So if anybody has them almost, going to be expiring soon, something to note for sure. But yeah, and that's one thing a lot of people are thinking of, like, since all these Hilton cards just got revamped, the Hilton Business got revamped. A lot of these cards, they're wondering if they should get them now because they had free night certificates on the welcome offers for so many years. If you were lucky, you got them. I got them on the Surpass. And a lot of people got them on the no annual fee one too. So I don't know. What do you think on that specifically? Like, do you think people should wait to see if maybe people would get, or they would eventually give you back an FNC for these Hilton cards, or just take a Surpass at 155K as a welcome offer? Do you think it's worth it waiting?
Yeah, I think it's really just dependent on a couple of factors. Number one, I think we're still waiting on the Hilton cards to meet that family language. So that could kind of accelerate that. I think they're one of the, like the Marriotts already have the family language. Obviously the charge cards have the family language on them to earn the subs. So from my experience, I would just try to grab them when you can. I mean, at this point, the Surpass has already been, and the Hilton business card have been, revamped. So we're not really expecting at least too many changes for the next year or so. But I just have this slight feeling, and maybe this is just my gut instinct, that the Surpass is going to have something elevated along with the Hilton business probably sometime towards late summer. I really think for them, it's more on the Hilton as a business wants to make sure that they're kind of pushing people towards their cards in the summer. At least that's what I've seen sort of throughout my years. But who really knows, right? That's like one of the best kept secrets at AMEX is when are the elevated subs going to happen? When is it actually going to happen? Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't really think anybody predicted the Hilton business changes other than obviously a raised annual fee, but removing the free night certificate after 15K and then the additional one after 60K was definitely a surprise for me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Leaves a lot of people upset. I remember Sledge and I were talking about it. He's like, that's kind of messed up. Because if you got the card, expecting to have the whole, year to hit 15K and now you're not. I mean, some people might consider that wasted spend. I've spent 5K already. There's no way I'm hitting 15. I could have put that 5K towards any other card, something like that. So I know a lot of people We're upset about that. I also want to mention Keith S. with a 5 super chat. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming in. And you said, "Oh, my new Hilton business card arrived today. It's heavy. It's heavy AF. It's the second Hilton business card on my rotation." Yeah, I heard the new Hilton business Hilton is metal. Oh my God! Wait, Ninja has
Just got it in today. Just came in today. So yeah, it's heavy, and it's a little bit here. Let me get my Aspire card. It's a little bit lighter in color, so it looks a little bit different. And what's crazy is if you have any employee cards, those are also metal too. So the Hilton Business employee cards also come in metal as well, just as a heads up.
Oh, they're spoiling us now. Oh my God! So it's worth it then. Who cares about the free night certificate? The employee cards are metal now.
So let's see. You can kind of tell. I'm just trying to cover up some numbers here, but it's a little bit lighter. The Hilton Business on the bottom than the Aspire.
Looks nice. It definitely looks nice. So good stuff on both of you getting it.
It's much better than the embossed cards. I'm very glad that they're done with that.
Oh, forget it. Yeah, what a pain those are. Seems like that's going away across the board. I think Chase got rid of it, or is getting rid of it on some of their cards. So we'll see. But thank you for that, Keith. I appreciate it. And then Xavier, the man who won the wallet last week. It might have gotten it today, or maybe it'll get there today. We'll see. 2 super chat. Appreciate you. More elevated subs. Give me the points. That's right. That's all we care about. We want more subs, more welcome offers. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So thank you, Xavier. Thank you, Keith.
And I think a quick note on that. What I really liked about Hilton is that they usually have, no lifetime language subs that are available. So even if you've had these cards before, like the Hilton business card, you can get that card multiple times, at least in current state, while they've got a lot of the language the way that it is, or the no lifetime language. So I think the amount of points you can accumulate with the Hilton cards, and I think, at least from my perspective, and I know other creators have brought this up, the 5X on the Hilton business as just a standard practice for everything across the board, it just simplifies things. And I think at the end of the day, from a business perspective, you're not trying to sit there just trying to get your 6X versus your 3X. It's just, me, my employees are running, business through this card. Let's just make it super simple. And it probably makes more sense from a business perspective to get points than an actual free night, unless you're the business owner or maybe like a sole prop doing that specifically.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Definitely, yeah. Simplifying, seems to be the mantra this year. So I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. Something I actually wanted to mention, which I'm really enthusiastic to hear. Anthony said he called to move his free night certificate because it was going to expire, and he said it pushed it back a month. That's good to know. So if it's expiring today, you can push it back to May, a month from now. So that's pretty cool. I like to hear that for sure. Okay, so, and you've done a lot of these Hilton stays. I guess before my next thing, so other than the LXR property, the Oceana, are there any other Hilton stays that you've done that you think compare to that stay, or that were way better? Or what do you think?
That was definitely the best one. I mean, there's for some, from my experience, sometimes, again, this is where I guess the title comes in, that the real cents per point doesn't matter. If I have a certificate and I need to stay somewhere, I want to stay somewhere, and it makes that trip more enjoyable for me, I'm just going to use that certificate. I really like to use them on trips, not only with family or even just friends, like having a guy's weekend with your homies and being able to treat them to a room and just know that it's taken care of is always great, especially if you're getting some sort of a small upgrade, even if it's just a little bit of a better room in terms of the height of the room, or maybe a couple extra amenities. It always seems to pay off pretty well. But one redemption I'm actually looking forward to, that I'm waiting on just finalizing the days, will be the Arizona Biltmore. So there's that one in Arizona. And if you look, it's kind of funny, because if you have an Aspire card and you're trying to utilize that $200 semi-annual credit that it comes with, sometimes you're trying to, you have to kind of plan your trip around if you want to use it, right, to find a resort. Arizona has like 11 resorts within like a 10, 20 mile radius, and one in Sedona, but they're usually around the Scottsdale area. And that Biltmore just looks beautiful. So if anyone stayed there, I would love to hear about your experience. It looks like a great time.
Huh. That's pretty cool. That's pretty good to know. That it's funny. You wouldn't initially factor or imagine that the Arizona would have all the resorts. Every time I think of resort, obviously it's just a weird connection I have, but I think like ocean, water, something like that. But Arizona, I just think dry deserts. That's pretty cool. That's pretty funny. Oh, and Richie, the CEO. Oh my God, what's going on, man? You're on vacation right now. What are you doing here? What the hell? I could have gotten the chief executive wife another Bahama Mama, but instead I did this. You better watch out, Andy. Oh my gosh. Yes, it did say Insta dead. It's fine. It's all right. I think you just maybe trying to call me something else. I don't know. Anyway, listen, get her the Bahama Mama. Refund that. We don't, I can't get drunk right now. I'm in the car, office. Enjoy your vacation, Richie. It's definitely well deserved. He's worked like 72-hour weeks back to back the last few weeks, so he's definitely deserves this vacation. I appreciate you, man, and the wife does too. And don't Kim, on your Arizona stay, that hotel looks like it's built into the rock. Is that a thing?
The Biltmore, yeah, it looks really cool. I haven't seen it in person, but I'm excited. So that'll be a great time to get some videos and some pictures there. That's for sure.
Hell yeah. What did you ever think? Because this was something I learned from Sean Lane and how he was able to like double dip his Aspire resort credits, and he did something where he, it was like the end of the year and he was about to lose his resort credits, so he called ahead at his stay. I think in the Waldorf at Cabo maybe, and he said, can I prepay for the incidentals? And I think he spent like $250, and they took that, and that worked towards the credits. So he paid for the incidentals, so this way when he got to the hotel, he could just buy food and build things in the room, do activities, and the $250 will come off that. Do you ever see a world where you would rather use it on that at like a really nice stay, or would you always use your resort credit for a actual property for like a night stay or 2-night stay?
Yeah, I think for me, since I have a pretty good amount of points, or I've got the free night certificates, I think it's just to enhance my experience while I'm there. So I don't necessarily value that resort credit as much as maybe other people would, at least in my use case. If I'm traveling, for example, with family, it's great just to be able to cover dinner with that. I mean, it really can cover a pretty solid dinner. Especially since you're earning, and you're also earning a really good amount of multiplier points on there, especially when you're using your Aspire.
Sure.
So there's that case, and it's definitely your mileage may vary situation. And I've personally just been able to use the resort credit not in full each time, so I do leave a little bit of money on the table. And I know Chad will probably get at me for leaving some money on the table there, but. Yeah, it's pretty easy to use. I mean, it's really interesting because I know we've talked about this in the past. I did one of the Hilton Timeshare experiences, or I guess you can say, where they try to do the presentation. And I stayed in Las Vegas at one of the resorts there. And it actually worked inside of the cafe that was downstairs before I had even had a stay or a folio there. So I know that the credit was actually already applied specifically for that specific bill that I paid for before I actually had a bill tied to the folio of the room. So that was actually really interesting too. Again, it's probably just that your mileage may vary in terms of, does this restaurant count towards this Hilton resort? It's kind of a little bit of, getting data points from everyone in the community.
That is very cool. That's because that was like the original plan for the Hilton Surpass, like before Chad initially did his gift card trick and then I ran with it. Getting the gift cards quarterly. I was like, well, you can just use it for, if you get the gift cards and maybe you can't use it, you're not using it for a stay, use it for a restaurant in your city or something, if it's a Hilton owned restaurant, something like that. But you're saying, I've never heard that before, that maybe the Hilton resort credit actually, it'll code if you're paying at a maybe Hilton owned restaurant with your Aspire card, and that could also work. So if you don't want to stay and you just want to have a nice restaurant stay, that might be possible. Of course, your mileage may vary, but a data point to think about for sure.
And I mean, worst case, if you're paying with your Aspire, although it's not maybe your strongest multiplier card, if you've got something like the gold card, 7x on dining isn't terrible. If we're looking at the half-cent per point valuation, I mean, 3.5 isn't bad. And speaking of gift cards, another thing came in the mail was my Hilton gift card, fully, which we can verify if you have the Hilton business card or a Hilton Surpass, that will count towards your allotted quarterly credits. And you'll actually get 12x if you're using the Surpass or you're using the business card on the purchase of that card as well.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's great. I just find it so funny, just a horde of people, because I read a comment from somebody sometime, I forget, well, I think on my Surpass video, and they mentioned that they went to an Embassy Suites, oddly enough, because that's where I went on that video, and he said that the person, when he went to go check out with his gift cards, actually said, we've been seeing a lot more gift cards lately. I wonder why. I'm like, could you imagine if all of us are just like, are the reason why people, it has to be, like, why else would anyone else have gift cards? You wouldn't think to do it as a normal person holding the Surpass. It's got to be just from us. So funny.
We have to get that question asked while we're all staying in New Orleans for the meetup. I feel like the Roosevelt's going to have all these gift cards to pay for all the food out there, and they're going to wonder what's going on. They're going to have a stack of them by the end of the weekend. Just
50,000 of them just sitting here. What's going on? Everyone's trying to pay with their gift card. I think that'll be so funny. Oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff in this game, but yeah, I love that stuff. Anthony, sorry, you actually said the same thing I said about the Sean. I didn't realize. Maybe I psyoped myself. Maybe I saw your comment and just said, I don't know, but incidentals for the resort credit, very, very nice. What's going on, Frugal Dad? And thank you, Andrea, for the 5K. Congrats and whatnot. Okay, so that's cool. So I guess on a little bit of this topic that you mentioned a couple of times, and basically the title of this the stream, talking about why cent per point doesn't matter. I noticed, and of course that's like you're trying to be crazy with that title, myself meaning, and it kind of, the reason I put that in there is because there was a time where we were on Discord and we were on a voice call. So it must have been like a Thursday roundtable or something, and it was late night. I think it was like midnight, and I was in St. Augustine. I was talking about how I just didn't like it there. And but I remember you were talking about some stays that you did, and just, I think, Vinny Boom Bots and whatnot. We were all in the conversation, and you said something to the effect of like, "Man, cent per point for me at least doesn't necessarily matter. How about experience per point? Like, this was at a EPP, experience per point. I had an amazing stay here. I didn't even look at the cent per point, something like that. So ever since then, I've kind of given you that, you coined that term, experience per point. So where does that necessarily come from? Like, have you always felt like experience per point is the way, or has it come just over time of being in this game? Because you said you've been in this game since 2007. So you definitely have a lot more experience than me and a lot of other people in the game. So what do you think on that topic, cent per point?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because, everyone's going to have their own version of even how they value their cents per point. I mean, there's people in the community that will claim they're getting, 36x on their Bilt card, which, I guess if you do the math that way, you can look at it that way as well. But experience per point at the end of the day is really just, you can keep it very simple. Did you have a good time or did you not have a good time? Because even if you had gotten an awesome redemption of 10 cents per point on a flight to Japan, if that flight, really wasn't a good experience, maybe something really about the service that wasn't the way you wanted it to be, or even the actual product itself, I would not like to feel like I parted with so many points just because I wanted to get a high redemption value. Especially, when you sort of look at the way that you can redeem different points at different locations. I mean, it's all very time-based too. If I redeem, like, even for a lot of the dynamic stays for Hilton or anything that's involving a lot of other hotel chains other than Hyatt, you're really just kind of making sure, number one, do I have the points? And I think the caveat to that is to make sure that you do have a floor at least. So it's a little bit of, if you wouldn't redeem your points, for example, I wouldn't want to redeem a Chase point for anything less than 1 cent per point. It just wouldn't make sense. But in other people's cases, they look at Chase points as their Hyatt points, and they won't even use those for anything less than 2 cents per point. So experience per point is not going to be consistent across the board. There's going to be many different factors, and part of the experience per point is going to be, Luke has brought this up in the past and jokingly, like, you can't stay first class while your family's in coach, like the experience for you might be great, but the experience once you get back to the room is probably not going to be your the best time. Right. So, that's kind of why, from my experience for the experience per point is just to make sure that the overall trip sort of just makes sense, that you're meeting your floor requirements. Like, For example, the Roosevelt in New Orleans isn't necessarily the best cents per point redemption and isn't even the best redemption amount for one of my free night certificates. But ultimately, number one, I need to use it before it expires. So I'd rather utilize that certificate. And number two, you know, I don't want to have to play the game of going back and forth between hotels to make sure that I'm getting a better redemption here. It's all about just, I'm trying to enjoy myself, and I'm on vacation, as most of us do, right? If we work so hard to earn these points, we want to be able to enjoy them once we actually get to that point. And at the end of the day, I'm not thinking about, you know, the redemption value. I'm thinking about what the overall experience was and the memories I gained from that.
I love that. I definitely love that. And it's been something that's been a little bit more contentious lately. Like I saw Spencer Johnson made a video on why he thought, you know, cent per point may not matter that much, and bring up a lot of the, you know, a lot of points that you mentioned here, like, you know, have like a floor and whatnot. So it's interesting how maybe nuanced it can actually be. And candidly, like over the years, I've always done a redemption, did the calculation after the fact. You know, that was always, I never really cared. It's like, do I have enough to stay there? Okay, cool. But you're definitely right about like, what's the cash out value? You know, how much could you buy these points for? Does it make sense? You know, it literally, does it make sense to do this? So I like all that ideas, and I actually have another question on that. But first, Mr. John, 5 super chat. I appreciate you, man. If you don't go on an awesome trip because you aren't meeting the best cent per point redemptions, can I use your points instead? Take the trip. I love it. Thank you, John. I appreciate you, man. Very, very true. Yeah, John's experiencing a lot right now. A lot of experience for points.
And real quick on that note too, I mean, you know, my cent per point value for being a Hilton Diamond member is going to be different than someone's cent per point value if they're maybe just a silver member, because I'm going to get extra added benefits. If I really think about the added $15 per guest, up to 2 guests for the credits that I'm getting while I'm there, if there's anything additional, even just like the water bottle when I walk into the room, maybe a couple of snacks. I mean, there is a dollar value we can attribute to that. And cents per point is just it's the closest thing to a unified metric to use just purely on a math basis across the whole entire spectrum of everyone that's in the game. I mean, it's really the only standardized method because it's just so subjective when we start getting into experience per point. But I think that's what makes, you know, everyone's sort of credit card journey and their identity very specific to them. And that's, I think, where, you know, if you have loyalty to certain programs, you know, your experience is going to be way different, even if you're not getting, you know, the best value per point if we're looking on a pure math basis.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Like when I went on the BS podcast guys, Sean Lane and Sherwin, on their podcast, that was like the main contention, which was, you know, maybe experience versus high cent per point valuations. And we eventually met a middle ground, but I could see, and he mentioned this was a bit of a flaw himself, because I brought up the point, like, he didn't want to stay at this one, I think it was a Grand Hyatt in Hong Kong, maybe something like that. He really wanted to stay there, but the cent per point wasn't there. He was like, there's another place that's not the place I want to stay at, but the cent per point's better. So I can't physically get me to book that stay. He just couldn't do it. So I was like, but Sean, look at that same redemption 2 months from now. And then, you know, or 3 months from now, the time changes, and then it's an amazing cent per point. He's like, and I get that's a flaw. He said, but he just can't part with it. So I get it. I get it for sure. And I always like to bring up my 2 experiences with the 2 Curio properties, the one in Charleston and the one in Kentucky. You know, one in Kentucky had amazing cent per point, horrible stay, worst stay of my life. One in the Mills House had a horrible one, maybe 0.4, 0.5 cents per point, best stay of my life. So a lot of these things, yeah, it's so variable based on you and literally your experience. Yeah. And Luke said Roosevelt is a good candidate for the FHR. Cheap room rate. Agreed. That Roosevelt's like $200 a night. And you get all FHR benefits. So what about for something like that? Do you also... So I guess when you're booking then, are you doing what I said, where it's like, oh, I'll book first, do the calculation after, or do you actually do the math before you book things?
I mean, the math is pretty easy, but again, it gets a little bit down into the weeds. Like, for example, because I've got several AMEX cards that earn MR points, membership reward points, you know, I usually like to actually transfer over, even speculatively. I know a lot of people have different opinions on that, to Hilton, because I know I'm going to stay at Hilton. For example, I transferred over about 100,000 points over to Hilton not too long ago when they had the 30% bonus. So at that point, you kind of have to kind of look at, if you look at the math that way, you know, it's not going to be as easy or direct. You kind of have to, I'm a very visual person. I have to sort of lay it out there and determine, you know, number one, how did I even earn these points too? And I feel like that plays into the experience per point, because a point, 100,000 points of me earning that without a sub is going to be obviously way harder than if I just had 5 referrals on my business gold. You know, a lot of the points that I was accruing was actual referrals. So the way I looked at it from last year as well was accruing referral points, utilizing that because I actually have up to working on a P5, but a P4 strategy, 4 players in this game. So when there's no, and maybe that changes my experience with cents per point, because I'm not trying to hodl them for too long. I'm trying to, you know, at least I've got enough to go around, right? And especially with a program like Hilton, when you're playing the game and you have extra people, both family, friends, or whoever it may be, to sort of stack those points. Combining those points for bookings is really easy too. Being able to transfer points over, it makes group stays just a whole lot easier.
That's so true. Yeah, that's really true. I think people, I mean, you could transfer points at Hyatt as well, but I will say Hilton was just like that much easier to move points over as well. So that is a good point. So player 4 strategy. Oh my God, that's crazy. So how are you doing that? You have 3 wives?
No, definitely not. That sounds expensive. No way.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
It's a mixture of family and friends. And again, I think it's one of those, you know, I've seen the question in a lot of Discords before, you know, how do you even get more than a player 2? I can't even get my wife or my girlfriend to sign up for a credit card. And I think it's just leading by example and showing them the benefits there. And, you know, maybe it's just me naturally sort of having a sales background that I'm just sort of talking about it. But again, just kind of explaining, you know, this experience was, I don't ever like to use the word free. I don't think free travel is ever a good way to look at it. But, you know, I basically got this out of my normal spend when we're looking at that. And I think just the way you position it and understanding the psychology of the person you're talking to a little bit, you know, what do they really spend their money on? Are they going on a big trip coming up? Does it make sense for them to have a travel card? I mean, that's always been an easy win from my experience, not from my dedicated players, but just from referrals in general. Because from, you know, what sort of actually got me into the actual points and miles game was traveling around the country and around the world for a lot of EDM festivals, music festivals. So it's been really easy to talk to people about, you know, when you start going on a lot of trips, people ask questions, you know, what do you do? How did you get there? Where did you stay? And that's where, you know, it makes sense to sort of bring that up. It's a very more organic situation to talk about cards and getting referrals, because that's very lucrative in terms of earning, you know, transferable points, currencies, or currency specifically for whatever program you may be a part of.
I really like what you said about, I think that's all great. Absolutely. I like what you said about, because, a lot of people do have troubles getting their player 2, or maybe they could stretch it more into the game. I like what you said, like framing things correctly based on who you're talking to. I think that's like a good thing to do at any point. Like if you're trying to say anything to anybody, you know, is this a person that will even be receptive to whatever message I'm trying to put across? I mean, if not, then you just end it right there. But if so, framing things in the correct way, or getting to a certain level is just a better way to communicate in general. You know, if you have the opposite, I guess, you know, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but I remember growing up, my dad used to say, like, I'm not going to change who I am based on who I'm talking to. Because he was a teacher, like driving teacher, and I was too, but driving teacher, and he would teach people in like a 5-hour class, so like on camera and stuff, and there's like 30 students. And he used to tell me stories where a lot of them would just stop listening, or they would like try to get him on something, like kind of like a combative, a combative thing. But I remember when I was teaching the class, I didn't have that experience. I had, good rapport, and it seemed like we were on the same level learning together. And I used to tell him, like, you kind of have to frame things in the way that people will be able to receive it. And he's like, I'm not going to change who I am. So I always thought that was wrong. So I like what you said, to anytime you're communicating with anybody is kind of frame it in a way that they'll receive it in the best way possible. Which, I mean, if you're in sales, that works infinitely better too.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it too is like, it's also okay just to explain to people the power of credit cards if you use them wisely without even getting a referral out of it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have recommended not to use my links because there's a better sign-up bonus by using even someone else's referral link, or using, like for example, with the Amex cards, the Resi sign-up bonuses were really great for a while. And so, at the end of the day, it's really just, if it works out and things align and the referral's there, that's great. Sometimes people will just use that even for less points because you kind of handhold them through the experience, or maybe you'll help them with the redemption later on. Especially if you're really close to them, it's a lot easier, and it's honestly a lot of fun. I think there comes a point where it's more about educating, and I feel like for me, I don't feel like I've mastered this hobby until I can explain it easily. I can teach it, and I can sort of, get people at least to the understanding that they shouldn't be putting everything on a debit card.
Yeah. Which is, a hard bridge to gap a lot of the times, just to go from debit to not debit, to credit card. I think that's very tough for a lot of people, especially if they're much older, and they've been doing this their whole lives. That's a tough game. But you're right. Yeah, I think education is everything. Mr. Potato said wife or girlfriend. Better hope they're not listening. And then John, wife, girlfriend, and mistress. That's your player forward. Oh my God, unreal. And so another thing was, you said, maybe pushing other people's referrals. So this way, it's like, I don't know, because I remember talking to Luke, who's in the chat now. I remember talking to Luke, and he said something where he used to spend time with people and try to teach them and whatnot, and then they wouldn't use his link, or they thought like it was taking something from them. So he just kind of like stopped doing it in a way, because it was his time, and his time's valuable, So
right,
he could be making a video going into 10,000 people, and not just as one person who's not going to use the referral link. So I think that's just funny. You ever have that experience where you went through something like this is how you do it, and then they just disappeared and they just didn't use your link?
Yeah, and you should almost go into it that they're not going to, and it puts it mentally in your head that it's just not going to work out. And if they ask questions afterwards, I mean, as long as I'm not repeating myself, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. I mean, it just kind of comes with the territory, and maybe, again, just having a little bit of a sales background and being able to sort of predict where this is going, and kind of getting a pulse check on, is this going to be a green to go, or is this going to kind of in the yellow area, or the red, this isn't going to work. Kind of give scorecards in my head of where this is going to go. And there's I know Mountain Bob was mentioned here earlier. He chimed in. I've sent ink referrals to him. I use other people's ink because I don't actually have an ink, and so I try to kind of round robin it between them, and even some family members that are on the ink train, which I'm hoping to get in February of next year. That was my one big regret. And one thing I will say in my credit journey was not starting the ink cards earlier on. I think I didn't protect my 524 status as well as I should have. But lessons learned. It doesn't take away from the experiences I've had by any means. But if we look at opportunity costs, the opportunity costs of the ink cards can really add up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And some people know I'm going crazy this year with my ink cards. So we got 2 so far, and we actually recently got a 3rd. I'm still making the video on it. So we got 3 so far this year. So it's crazy.
It's awesome.
It's crazy how much you can build up in a short amount of time.
So many points, especially the referrals.
Yeah. So I think I got one or two, maybe one referral from there. So that's 40,000 is insane. It's definitely appreciated, anybody that does. This is crazy. Like you said, even a minimum like 1 cent per, it's $400 in cash. You could cash it out if you want, if you have to pay for something. That's insane.
And then you kind of have to think about, I mean, maybe this is a good problem to have, but I got 1099s from many issuers last year for the referrals, both through Capital One, AMEX, and Chase, actually. So, or actually, no, sorry, not Chase, but Capital One and AMEX. And because AMEX has them separated per account, there were multiple 1099s I got specifically on those. So those referrals do cost you a little bit of something, but I guess you're sort of buying them at whatever your, whatever you can claim on your taxes as the income on there.
That's right. So wait a second. So for those of you who don't know, Ninja has his channel might be linked somewhere here, but I'll put it in the comment after the stream. But he did one video, and he'll make some over time, but he's got other things that he's more interested in. But you've gotten all these referrals and 1099s from these banks without making YouTube videos, man. How many? You just have a lot of friends, huh? Or I guess your player 4 strategy is a thing too.
The player 4 strategy plays a role into that for sure. But, you know, there's a lot of active discords, you know, even aside from the venture capital discord, which is, I will say, is my favorite one. I think the most, and I say that because the most intellectual conversations stem from there. And I seem to learn the most from there. There's so many veterans in the game that are content creators and even non-content creators, because it does take a lot of energy and time. And time is that finite resource that we don't necessarily know how much we have. And it changes. It's a very variable thing depending on what's going on in our lives. You know, we all can't be workhorses like Chad. Chad Money Minutes, shout out to you for finding time in your long work days. I'm always impressed. And it's actually really motivating to hear that. And I think the Thursday roundtables, which I haven't been there each week, I'm definitely going to admit that. But when I do show up, it's always great just to hear from new people and talk about different topics and the speculative things that, you know, we wouldn't necessarily talk to people outside of this hobby. You know, no one cares about what was the card of 2023 and what do you think AMEX is going to do next? You know, these are just the fun conversations we get to have. And that's actually a main reason why I'm looking forward to the meetup, because I think there's going to be a lot of attendees that aren't content creators that want to talk about this hobby. You know, it's a very niche hobby.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you guys coordinated the roundtables, and I'll join every now and again. And like you said, yeah, it's always very insightful, very fun. A lot of great people who show up to that every week. So I love that. And you said something earlier about you know, being in this game for a long time and you know, getting educated and also like that's a good sales thing. But so I remember watching your first video, your like intro to who you are. And you said you've been in this game since 2007, which one I was like, damn, I thought you were like my age, but I guess you're, I guess you're just slightly older. 2007. So how did that all start? How did you get started in you know, what is that, 17 years ago, in the game? How'd you get started that long ago?
Yeah, so for me, it really just started with, I knew early on that credit was going to be important for my future, especially just kind of having a long-term outlook. So in doing so, you know, signing up for a secured card, I think my very first card was like a Wells Fargo secured card, something along those lines. And then eventually getting, you know, AMEX very early on in the game. That was a recommendation from a family member actually to grab an AMEX card, even though they weren't, they obviously didn't really go into the 524 status, but that's neither here nor there. And it really actually started off as more cashback. Obviously points and miles sound fun, but it just sounded like a lot of work. And while I was going through college, I just wanted, at that time, I wasn't really planning on any major large trips other than kind of trips with the family at the time. I mean, not many people, I think, have a lot of funds, at least ones that they earn their own, most likely in college if you're paying for it yourself. So it was more about just getting cash back and utilizing that towards even just paying for food and the normal things back then. So that's what really got me into cards in general. And then, like I had sort of brought up earlier, what really had me kind of hone in on, wow, these miles can be worth a lot, or certain cards can really give me more value than if I did just pay cash. Was really just starting to go to a lot of music festivals around the world. It kind of was the nice, I guess you could say, the Trojan horse to traveling to different places. You know, you spend a lot of money on tickets, so your spend is already organically for you. If you were already planning on doing it, why not earn something back on that, or maybe find a way to get, you know, the hotel room cheaper or something discounted from that.
I see. See, your story, now that you're mentioning it, kind of reminds me of the first podcast I ever did with Lalit Devraj. And he used to do the same thing. He first got into the game, I believe, just when he was going around the world to beatboxing tournaments. And that was kind of how he traveled, and that's how he used his points and miles to, you know, get free stays, free flights. Because at that time, beatboxing wasn't really making too much money for him until he got into like bigger competitions and whatnot. But you were going to these EDC or EDM, same thing?
Yeah, so electronic dance music festivals. I go to a lot of rock shows too, but mainly electronic music. Those have been global, and they've provided a lot of opportunities for me to meet so many people in the other communities that I'm a part of, you know, the shuffle dance community specifically. Here we go. Here comes the photo.
We got which one is this one?
Yeah,
we got this one too.
me performing on stage. Yeah, so that's actually not my primary gig, but something I like to do for fun that just turned into, you know, as we talk about hobbies that sort of turn into ways to make money or some sort of side gig. You know, I started dancing at a young age, but necessarily it was more just practice, freestyling, things like that. And in combination with me experiencing these festivals, learning how to shuffle has been a main component for me. I mean, I can't imagine experiencing a festival without wanting to dance a little bit.
So I wanted to ask you about this because yeah, I know this of you that you do this and you have some stuff on your Instagram where you're you know, you're shuffling and whatnot. And there was a time in I guess like 18, 19 is when I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to get into shuffling, and I was like, this is cool dancing, and that was like the thing at that time. And all these like you know, festivals and whatnot, and people are doing it. I was like, oh, it's so cool. And you know, you learn a little bit, like, you know, do the knee thing. I don't know, but I never actually got good at it. But how did you get started in just shuffling itself? Like, did you see someone do it, and then you learn from YouTube videos? Someone teach you?
Yeah, man, YouTube University. I feel like just how a lot of us tend to learn, YouTube University, and finding the communities locally where you live, because a lot of, at least from the way that I like to learn, again, being a visual person, being around it and sort of just kind of being able, you know, dancing is sort of its own language, right? There's ways that people communicate through their body movements. And I think when you're sort of immersing yourself in that sort of a culture, you start to kind of pick up on things, little details that weren't necessarily something you were aware of before. I mean, it's kind of like, in a sense, you know, if you were trying to learn a different language, you know, you're going to struggle at first, but when you start surrounding yourself and immersing in that sort of an environment, you do have a little bit more of adaptability and a little bit of, I guess you can call it mirroring, in the sense that you start to just sort of grasp and maybe soak things up kind of like a sponge in that sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I never really considered dancing as a form of language. Like, I've heard people say, like, you know, in certain regions, and maybe some dances are more sexual in South America. You know, some of them are more classy, like here. And I don't know. And shuffling's a little wild at times, and it's fun. And you know, but so what does it mean to be someone who shuffles? Like, is this the only dance that you do, or do you any other types?
Well, what's really cool about shuffling is it's sort of a growing type of style of dance. There's a lot of basics, primarily what's called Melbourne shuffling. Guess where that began? In Melbourne. But necessarily, from my perspective, it's kind of a mixture. Like, it has just evolved into many different genres, I guess, kind of forming into what is considered primary shuffling. And there's a lot of, as there's debates in different communities, especially in subjective artistic communities, about what is or is not a certain genre of music, it kind of goes along with the shuffle community as well. So there's people that talk about shuffling specifically. There's something else that a lot of us like to consider a little bit separate called shaping. There's just different styles of movement. It's almost like, you know, a good example would be that someone on the West Coast sounds different than someone on the East Coast, or someone from Boston sounds different than someone from New York. And the same thing kind of plays out in dance as well. There's dancers in Miami that dance differently than those in Texas, than those in California. I mean, there's specific styles that are actually like things called Cali style that's specific to Cali shufflers. When you talk about the high knees, it's, you know, primarily people who bring their knees up a little bit higher. There's a lot of ways to kind of analyze it and look at it. But yeah, it's really just a combination of many different things. And at the end of the day, it's sort of just like, can you hit the beat, and are you doing something that ultimately, you know, ties together?
Even that last point you just mentioned, like, can you hit the beat? And I guess for those who are unfamiliar with shuffling, I guess you're quite literally doing some sort of, like, I don't know, a leg movement, a stomp. I'm going to butcher things, but, you know, to whatever the beat is, and usually they're kind of fast paced, you know, something like that. I mean, how would you describe shuffling to somebody? Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, you know, it's always fun to sort of go into that world of like, how would I describe it? I just
Yeah.
talk about it as being, a full body movement that involves, it looks like you're basically running in place, right? That's the real,
Yeah.
we talk about the running man, and there's like old school versions of the OG running man versus the shuffling running man. And it's very different. And it's something called a T step that involves the way that the way that your foot sort of is angled and the way that you move and sort of pivot off of it. So there's really a few core concepts. And then from there, it just, everyone kind of shows their own personality. And I think that's what makes it really different, is like, even with b-boyers, right? There's specific b-boy styles, there's specific ground moves, but everyone likes to add their own flair. You can pull from different genres of dance into that. And that's actually where a lot of people have found success in the community, is kind of finding their own identity, as, tying it back to credit cards, how everyone kind of finds their own identity in the credit card. Some people are switching identities every now and then. They go from being Chase fanboys to, Hyatt bros, but you really just you focus on what's driving you at the time. And I think it really plays into being sort of a whole person, is just having some sort of creative outlet, right? Having the ability to not only do something that's creative, but also, it's great cardio. That's shuffling is my cardio.
That's cool, man. Is it one of those community, like you said, like maybe there's conflicting things like Amex versus Chase or Hilton versus Hyatt? Does the dancing world have that too, where it's like we hate that community, or that community's lazy? That's lazy dancing, or maybe this is classy dancing. Like, does that happen too?
Yeah, I think with anything subjective, it's just like, the keyboard warriors come out, and there is a battle culture, as there's different sort of dance battles. There's a strong battle culture that's brewing in the shuffle community. And so there's a lot of different, viewpoints on, battling versus freestyling versus choreographed dancing. There's so many different views. So as we're comparing it to sort of credit cards and bringing it home there, there's people that, are hybrid, right? They have hybrid setups where they're not just points and miles, they're also cash back. Or maybe they're, and it's also timeliness too. Like, I feel like people in their shuffle journey, they might start off as one style, but then they slowly maybe pick up on other things that are more fitting to their personality, or even the type of music that they're dancing to, which would be, maybe if I'm doing international travel, I'm going to try to accumulate a different set of points rather than if I'm doing something domestic. It's going to be a whole different mindset. So sort of a different strategy going into it.
I see. I love how you tie it all in together. It's great. That's very, I love it. So that's pretty cool. I just love to learn about it, because it was something that I was interested in, and I never actually, kept up with it. I never was, I didn't care about it enough to be consistent to actually get good at it. But you were, and you got to a very high level, and you said you were doing like competitions and stuff. So is this for money? You were able to make money doing this?
The competitions hasn't really been, I guess, my foray into it. It really, I've won a couple of non-monetary based competitions to earn, I guess you could call some street cred back where I'm from. But other than that, I had the opportunity, being here in Texas, to perform on many occasions, actually, at multiple music festivals, as well as for some weekend events, for some larger events here in Texas. So I've been doing it for about the past 4 years, I guess you can say, semi-professionally. That's also something I don't really like throwing out there, but I mean, if you're getting paid to do something, right? I mean, it is something that has some value to it.
Yeah. So how does that work? Because I've seen some videos on your Instagram too, where you were like, you even said offline, like, we got paid to go to an event, and then there's somebody doing some sort of music or DJing, whatever, and you're there to like shuffle on stage. So is that a thing? Like, they'll bring you on as almost like, I don't know, entertainment is the right word, but just to have like a bunch of people on stage doing that, like that's what they'll pay you for?
It's usually just two, like one on each side of the stage, and it really just adds to the full experience for anybody that's attending. Yeah, it's really awesome, man. I mean, I've been able to meet so many DJs that I've looked up to, and really just that perspective of, being a fan in the crowd, the difference of being on stage and looking out versus, looking up at the stage itself is just completely different. And, breaking through some of the nerves, it's funny, like, I perform at huge music festivals with thousands of people when I'm on stage, but I'll get nervous if my girlfriend's watching me dance, or I'm practicing in my living room or something like that. I have to almost get into character, kind of like how I feel a lot of content creators are. They get into sort of their character, right? There's an online character, and there's, just who they are. And I will say, I think you do a really good job at being, just this conversation right now, this is exactly who you are. I know that, I don't get the sense that I'm being sold something all the time, because I feel like there's sometimes in the content creation community, and it is a business, right, that I just feel like I'm watching infomercials all day long. And at first you're just trying to digest all this information, and then the next thing you know, you're kind of watching the same videos over and over, the same sort of content. Yeah,
I could see that. Yeah, like you said, it's business. It's business, and then it's also, it's definitely a hard thing to do. I bet for most people, it's like, at least for me personally, what I'll just talk. Well, at least more recently, I've been talking about like more experiences or just some math or whatever on something, and I'll make sure to mention, like, of course, because you have to mention it. I have to mention I got a link down below, of course. I'd be doing myself a disservice if I wasn't doing that. But of course, just saying things just as they are, like, crazy stuff that you do, redemptions and whatnot. So I think it makes a lot of sense, for sure. I also want to mention for you, DJ October said, Ninja, that's awesome. I make DJ tutorials on my channel. Mr. Ivan.
Awesome.
EDM is coming up soon. Yeah, he's got some. Now I think he has he's got a credit card channel in Spanish, and he also has his DJ tutorials channel. So that's very cool. So he's doing a lot. I also wanted to mention from our earlier conversation about going to like New Orleans or these meetups and stuff. Anthony said you guys have started the Comic-Con for credit card nerds. Oh my god, that's funny. Oh Lord.
I don't know if I'd want to call it Credit Con. I feel like that sounds really bad. It would have an interesting connotation to it, but yeah.
Exactly. Oakland said Card Con sounds like a convention for credit card scammers. That's funny. Yes, absolutely. Can you imagine? Oh Lord. Running Man. Filmo danced at his wedding in 1998. Very nice.
There we go.
Not bad. I didn't get to dance at my wedding. It's because it was a Vegas wedding, baby. But we danced afterwards, so that helps. Oh, that's funny. So that's cool. So I love hearing about that stuff. That's like Lilith with beatboxing. I like to hear that these other side ways of making money, and also expressing yourself and the creativity and the art of it all. I think that's a lot of fun. There's also something else that you said on that one video you did that I feel like should have been said more, but you kind of said it, and for some reason it hit me. And you said something like you equated credit card points and miles and just building up your profiles to like RPG video games, role-playing games, and just whatever it is, World of Warcraft or RuneScape or Fallout. I don't know. You have an open world, and you just build up your stats, build up your character, and you just become better over time. Do you view your whole life like that as well, or is this credit card focused alone?
I mean, now we're getting into the conversations where you start asking yourself, are we in a simulation or not? But
oh no,
no. But I do sort of view it like that. I mean, you have to be adaptable. You have to, and I mean that's just as we see, for example, I guess the most recent one, the Hilton business changes, the changes to annual fees. I mean, you can make a plan, but that plan has to have some sort of flexibility, right? There needs to be some sort of malleability that you need to take into account. That you need to, honestly, I just sort of plan for the worst. I plan that points are going to get devalued over time. That's why I try to look, in sort of intervals of time of progress. So like how much did I do this quarter versus biannually, and then sort of annually, and how I weigh the value of those points too. Because if they're just sitting there and you aren't using them within a year, you have to imagine if you had that sitting in cash, and especially now, with a high yield savings account, CDs, or the way that you might be investing your money, what really was the opportunity cost? But you could get into so many theoretical conversations with yourself. And, those are the conversations that I'm up in my head late at night at like 1 a.m. thinking about, oh, this is going to change now. Which card am I going to go through next? I mean, ultimately, you just have to find what your passion is and If you enjoy sort of looking at it like a video game, then, your whole mindset of, do multipliers even matter is going to change, because ultimately, if the name of the game is accruing as many points as possible, you really are just going to focus on subs. You're not going to probably spend as much time on things like the new Robinhood Gold card. But then again, if your strategy is that you've got so many points right now, and this is sort of where I'm at right now, you're sitting on enough points. I'm trying to increase my ability to invest more, aside from what I already do, through credit card points, or because I guess they're called technically rewards first, like with the Fidelity card, for example, that does 2% back that gets distributed to any of your Fidelity accounts. But the Robinhood Gold card sort of sparked something there, even though there's not a sub for that card. In fact, you're basically really, if you're getting it just for the card, you are spending that Robinhood Gold annual fee to get there. Yeah.
Interesting. So I like this conversation a lot. So you are you're more or less at least more nowadays. So you're saying you're starting to use some of these points towards maybe cashing them out into a brokerage account, or maybe like Fidelity, where it goes directly into a stock brokerage account, or Robinhood, and you're using that for just investments for the long term and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, it would be trying to make things as automated as possible, because if you're, depending on how many points you're earning per week, finding an easy way, and I don't have the answer for that now, but it's something I'm sort of looking into, because up until then, I'm going to show this card here. I have a couple cards I wanted to show that people probably don't have in their wallet. The first one being the Fold debit card. This was a card that actually earns Bitcoin back. It's a prepaid debit card, so you basically load money onto the card. You can buy gift cards, and you earn, instead of dollars or anything back or points, you earn Bitcoin back. For example, I was actually one of the people who first got the first Blockfi card when that was a thing as well, and that was giving 1.5% back in Bitcoin. Being a long-term Bitcoin hodler and someone who's very bullish on it long-term, for me, it made sense to basically stacking daily. For me, it made sense to earn points daily. And sort of along those lines, when Gemini came out with their card, and what's great is there's no name on this card. I got the Team Rose Gold Gemini card, so we can talk about Team Rose. There's no, I don't think there's Classic Gold. There's a black version and another version, but
should have got that one.
The Gemini card's really great because at least when it first launched, 3% back on dining, 2% back on grocery stores, and 1% back on everything. So for me, I actually use this for dining when I wasn't working on a sub. This was a great dining card for me. And then last year they had an amazing, bonus period where they were giving 10% back at gas stations, up to $200 per month in spend. And so me being a remote worker, I never hit that 200 per month, but a great way to rack up points. And then as of about 2 months ago, they just changed that to be a permanent category at 4% back for both EV charging and gas. This is a no annual fee card. So imagine this card, it is taking up a 524 slot if you're protecting that, but and I know I shared some numbers with you over in our DMs specifically regarding, how valuable these can actually be. If you're looking at a long-term horizon and you're sort of investing your points, or you're sort of looking at building a stack of points with your normal spend, I kind of shared some of the numbers. They were small numbers because obviously I've been working on so many subs throughout the years, but when I'm not working on a sub and I'm focusing on optimizing with multipliers, there were times where I was basically earning Bitcoin back in the low 20,000s when it was there. I think right now we're probably at let's see, I got it on my watch. That's a problem. 68,000. So, I mean, even those, if you really think of it like that, I was earning at the time, I was earning 10% back in gas. And now that was around, 20,000, we can just give or take, we'll give it a 3X, a little more over a 3X. I mean, that's like getting, 30% back if you want to look at it like that, doing the fun mental gymnastics people do when they're talking about redemptions and stuff. So, but it is really, and a different viewpoint. I think I haven't seen too many people take into account. And until they nerfed that Fold card specifically, there were times where, you would use this Fold card to buy you get 5% back on like an Amazon gift card. And then you would also get kind of like the Yotta where you would spin a wheel. You'd also get the opportunity to spin a wheel. And there were times where I'd get an additional 4% back on top of the 5% of buying the gift card. So I was getting 9%, anywhere between at least 5% back on Amazon, getting some of the spin the wheel sort of situations to add to that. and slowly just building a stack there. And, as you start to accumulate more wealth, taxes seem to matter a lot more. And when you start caring about your taxes, that's how you're probably in a better position. What's really cool about the Fold card is that your cost basis of the Bitcoin itself doesn't begin until you actually withdraw it out of the account. So there's the old saying of not your keys, not your coin. But at the end of the day, if you've got a reasonable amount that you're willing to at least hold there and you're trying to kind of step up your cost basis, you can wait until you actually withdraw it out of the account. So yeah, there's just so many different strategies, and there's so many different, speak to a CPA on that, speak to your own CPA. I'm not a financial advisor, nor am I an accountant, but it is something that is doable with that. And because that was, back until when PayPal just nerfed their PayPal bill pay, people were actually paying their mortgages that way. They were using the debit card to pay their mortgages if it was through PayPal bill pay, because it's a debit card. And then they were getting those spins back. So there were people that were getting 4% back in a month on their mortgages. Wow. But they've heavily changed that. Obviously, that was not a sustainable business model. But much like we're seeing with a lot of the cards now, there'll be these, I guess, opportune times where and that's how I sort of feel about the Robinhood Gold card right now, where it sounds great on paper, but there's going to be changes that we can foresee, and you need to just really take heed of those cards or those situations if that falls into your plan or that's something that you're interested in as soon as possible before it inevitably is going to change. I mean, it is a business. They have to make money, and they have to make sure that they're sustainable with that.
Wow. That is pretty cool. I actually have a million questions on that, but I don't want to leave Keith behind here because he did do a $2 super chat. Congrats on 5K subs, Anthony. High frying pan, yeah. Most dangerous hotel in the world. We just got to double from here. We got to hit 10K, and we'll go to the most dangerous. So I appreciate that, Keith, man. Thank you so much for that one as well. Is the one from earlier. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Keith. Okay, that is so that's pretty crazy. So it seems as if credit cards are underground, then credit cards for Bitcoin is even more underground, because it seems like you're mentioning, there's so many different little things that you can do here and there, like these extra spins that I was unaware of. All these cards that can earn X amount on Bitcoin and something like that. And I have a little bit of experience with this because the Curve card for a while earned 1% cashback, but you could earn it in the crypto of your choice. I always earned in Bitcoin. So at that time, building up, $50 or $60 worth of Bitcoin, accumulating whatever it was at that time, I realized that quickly grew to like $70, $80, $100 in cashback, just because the price of Bitcoin did so well over that time period, and then I sold it. They stopped letting me buy Bitcoin with the cashback, so then eventually just cashed it all out. There's real merit to it. There's definitely real merit to something like that being possible down the line. You just have to, of course, want to buy Bitcoin. So if you wanted to, could you earn in anything other than Bitcoin at all, with like the Gemini card, for example?
Yeah, so it's that's a question I would get a lot about the Gemini card is, you can earn other cryptocurrencies. So you can earn, I think whatever Gemini on their platforms, there's 50 plus different cryptos you can earn in. And one that for someone who's maybe just not even into crypto, they really don't care about owning any, but they just like the no annual fee card. Maybe like that's a metal rose gold card they don't have to pay for, or the fact that they, when they swipe this card, if they want to strike up a conversation and ask if someone asks if they're a Gemini. I don't know why they would, maybe that's the reason they want the card. But anyways, you can actually get what's called GUSD, which is Gemini's stablecoin. Meaning that it is pegged at a 1-to-1 ratio. So essentially it's like earning cash back. It's the same thing. You can it's kind of like as you would earn a rewards currency, like a UR point, that you would just basically transfer 1-to-1. So you would get that one cent per point there. Gotcha.
I see.
So it's a 4%, if you look at it like that, it's really a 4% gas and EV card up to $200 per month is the stipulation, or a 3% card. And you can switch this at any time. You're not locked. You could literally do multiple transactions. And what's cool is that the points hit pretty much next day. So it's really easy. And for those of you that I know maybe run into issues like with AMEX, who won't, code certain places as gas, like for example, I get gas at Sam's Club. Amex will count that as a warehouse charge and not a gas charge, which has been upsetting in terms of earning some extra multipliers. But I can vouch that this one does count. They code everything as you would imagine for a lot of the other issuers.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Is there any real so I guess on that topic, because you mentioned you were one of like the first people to have the BlockFi card, and I know they were offering some really extraordinary rates on like money that's on their account, and like up to 8%, 8% APY, like tripling whatever bank accounts are giving you at that time. And they eventually unfortunately, I think they went under, or a few things. There's a few of them. I think Kraken might have been one.
Yeah.
So for Gemini, is that all? That's an exchange, right? Like Coinbase and whatnot.
Correct. Yeah, it's actually founded by the Winklevoss twins.
Winklevoss twins.
The Facebook twins that were
Are those
there
the shirt people? They have like crazy shirts and stuff. I think I've heard of them.
I'm not sure.
Might have heard them on a Joe Rogan once. I think Duncan Trussell had it.
And at the time, you were actually able to earn interest on your crypto sitting on the platform through their Earn program. That definitely got nerfed as well during the bear market of 2021. But and obviously there was a lot of things that were happening in the crypto world. That's a whole nother discussion in itself. Yeah. But the card has stuck around. I mean, the BlockFi card, I actually had to cancel that card because and it really struck up a lot of interesting things because the platform itself was down, but you still, the bill comes due. If you had a balance on that card because the balance was still issued by another bank, there were people that were just thinking, oh, I don't have to pay my balance. And, there were people that were getting letters. No, you definitely have to pay your balance. But it was a no annual fee card. It really was unfortunate. I luckily scathed by grabbing all of my stuff off of the platform before I saw sort of some warning signs. And being, sort of more risk averse when you've been in crypto for long enough, when something just doesn't sound right or it sounds too good to be true, it's kind of like when we talk about these opportunities, ride that train while it's there, but you have to be nimble and you have to be sort of have the ability to adapt on a whim.
Makes sense. So what do you think about this then? I did a video maybe a couple months ago on this guy named Sonny Poe on Twitter, who ended up maxing out 8 different credit cards for their no APR period. So I think no APR for the first 18 months, something like that. And he took all the cash from that and he bought Bitcoin with it. And I think he ended up buying like a coin and a half around 30K, 20K, something like that. And now it's like, 68,000, like you said earlier, Bitcoin, the price right now. And I think currently he's up like $45,000 on that move of maxing out all his credit cards. And I think his minimum spend is like $500 a month, something like that. Do you think that's a good strategy? Do you think that he's crazy for doing that, or you think that makes sense to do that?
I definitely understand that strategy. It's something I've actually considered at one point, but haven't actually executed on, just because buying something with debt to buy something speculative, if you're basically looking at it like that, unless you're investing for the long term, I just would never personally recommend that. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I like to be a little more risk averse than that. And, I guess if you don't need credit, I mean, if you had no use of having a high credit score, because his utilization would be just absolutely toasted. Yeah. It is a method, right? I mean, that's a way of basically getting a 0% interest loan as long as you can cover it. And ultimately he would have to sell at some point unless he had some sort of cash flow to actually pay the, not only the monthly, at least minimum balance, but making sure that you do not miss a payment during that date, or you're going to lose, whatever the APR is on that once that bill comes due, and it will come due. So I've done a little bit of that in the past, not specifically to buy Bitcoin, but for example, when there was the 8% in USDC, when that was going on and you're earning that, I did do a little bit of that with the 0% interest, being able to, not that I'm taking money from the card to necessarily put into USDC, but at the time it made more sense to just, or, people are doing that now with high yield savings accounts, where you could just basically take that money, just keep writing that 0% interest until you need to. But that is not something I recommend for the beginner, intermediate, definitely more of an advanced play. And you really need to, have some plans of, if something happens, maybe you lose your job, maybe you don't have, an emergency happens and you dip in your emergency savings if you have one. So you really have to just outweigh the risk. So for me, it's just being able to go over that. But I mean, if you have 0% cards, why not utilize that strategy? It's just that's a little too risky for me specifically. I have other ways of making money that don't involve me having to borrow from the banks and having them on my back.
Gotcha. Makes sense for sure. And it's funny, I've actually spoken to him since then, and he seems to be pretty aware of all the risks, and he's kind of ready for it. Like he understands, like, oh, if he doesn't pay it back by the the end of the promotional period, then he'll owe all the back interest and whatnot. So he seems pretty aware of all. I'm excited to see what happens for him. I'm very, very excited to see, because he basically timed it perfectly from when he made that post to now. So I just hope that it stays consistent. What about for you though? Like, do you are you in Bitcoin for the greater story of it, like what its uses can be down the line, 10 years, 20 years from now? Or are you in it more for trading purposes, and you kind of understand the price action of Bitcoin more than maybe some other people? Do you think?
Yeah, I would say my mindset has definitely evolved. The more I think you learn about Bitcoin, the more you probably have different takes on it, right? I mean, if you asked me a couple years ago what I thought about Bitcoin versus today, it would be a very different answer. For me, it is something that I look at as money-saving technology. Obviously, there is, we could consider it a dollar amount that's associated with it, but essentially being long Bitcoin means you're short the US dollar. And the way that they're printing the US dollar, and the way that I believe money is being mishandled on a global basis, having a digital finite asset such as Bitcoin itself. And, nothing made it more clear that even our own government is declaring it really an asset. If you really look at the way that the Bitcoin ETFs that came out this year, it's no more about, dealing with managing a Coinbase account or having your own wallet, learning how to take care of something like that. I mean, this is the best performing asset that we've seen. If we were just to look at this on a math basis, on a mathematical basis, you looked at a chart over the last, 13 years, 15 years, since I think Bitcoin was brought out in 2008. So doing some math there, 16 years, 16 years. It's the best performing asset that's ever existed. And then now with the inflows of the ETFs, that you could buy in your Fidelity account or your Robinhood account, it makes it easy to just invest in that if that's something that you believe in, or at least allocate some as sort of the hedge against, maybe US dollar devaluation. As we sort of see right now, our purchasing power continues to decline. And, the old saying is one Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. And the more you get into it, the more you'll start to sort of realize that's what it really comes into. If you were to sort of look at, I guess it's a whole perspective change. And I think that's where it actually made me change my spending habits on credit cards. And that's something I wanted to bring up with that, because, sometimes as you're reaching these subs, I don't think there's anyone here that 100% of the time might not have actually, added extra guac on their Chipotle when they didn't necessarily need to originally, because they're working on a sub. So it's okay. Like, that's the whole point. They want you to spend money while you're working on a sub. So it's made me rethink about, even like sometimes I have the ability to get a business platinum and grab maybe, the 15K spend in the 3 months or whatever it may be. But do I really want to spend that 15K right now, or use that towards something more long-term? And I say long-term as in like 10 plus years. My ultimate vision time horizon for Bitcoin is 20, 30 plus years, holding it as an actual, what I would consider one of the hardest assets aside from real estate. Obviously, real estate is the physical extension that we all have to partake in. But from a digital perspective, I mean, it just seems like the writing's sort of on the wall. And especially as we start to see a lot of more investment vehicles like the ETFs that have become public and publicly available to, even your grandparents. They don't have to understand how to do what Bitcoin is. They can just look at purely price action over time. And, at least in my personal opinion, it might be, if you are investing, it could be considered, irresponsible to not even have a little bit of exposure, even if you put $100 in it today. But that's my personal perspective. I've done a lot more studying into it, and there's great companies to own too. I mean, just look at NVIDIA over the last year. That mind-boggling, which is funny because I was investing in NVIDIA based on the cards that were needed for a lot of different mining purposes, and then here, the AI boom just absolutely took over.
Yeah. So I guess on that topic as well, so you mentioned like your time horizon, 20, 30 years. And, in one degree, when we watch a lot of these things over the years, we've seen a lot of, people in the stock game and saying like long-term investors and whatnot. And usually in the comments, you'll see something like, this year is going to suck, or next year is going to suck, or even 3 years from now is going to suck. A company is going to do bad over the short to medium term. What was it for you, do you think, that shifted your ability to see your day-to-day pricing on, well, any asset, but in this conversation, Bitcoin, because I know how tumultuous it can actually be. What is it? It's probably a struggle as well to this day, but what is it for you to kind of feel okay with your decision to say, like, listen, I'm in this asset and I have enough conviction that over the next 20, 30 years, it will make sense, even if I lose money over the next 5 years. I think that's really a hard bridge to gap for a lot of people. And maybe you're not over that, but it's just, a hope or something. But has there been any mechanisms that you use or any thought patterns to use to make you think, like, no, this is something I have to worry about 20, 30 years, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just building your conviction. And in trading, if you're worried or you can't sleep at night because of what price action is going to do, then that means you're overexposed. And that would be the same for investing too, right? Ultimately, there's only so much we have under control. And I think, if we were looking at home prices every day, people would probably freak out at how much their home price, if we were to look at a per day basis, except people aren't normally looking at their home price fluctuating every day. Obviously, it's not as volatile. Bitcoin is a 50 vol asset, so it's pretty volatile. But over time, it's becoming less and less volatile, especially as we're seeing increased adoption and whatnot. So, you have to have the stomach for it, right? I mean, it's just like anything. You really just learn lessons through experience. And for me personally, I haven't ever sold any of my Bitcoin. I don't plan on doing that. My long-term strategy is actually borrowing against it, and I think that's what the ETFs have ultimately, once they allow options trading and once they allow you to take margin out on that, there's going to be opportunities to leverage the current financial system, which is against the original ethos of Bitcoin, right? I mean, but I'm also realistic about it. Like, it's great that people in countries that can't, they're worried about their currency devaluing, or, they don't have the ability to transact, or the government controls what they can and can't do with their money. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's why, in my opinion, it makes sense for anybody nowadays, if you are into Bitcoin, to have exposure not only to the raw asset itself, but also having the opportunity to take advantage of the financial instruments that we have in the current state and what's going to be coming over the next year or so.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess if anyone's watching and is maybe like really motivated by this conversation, what would you be able to say, like, as a percentage of your assets that you actually have allocated towards Bitcoin? Like, is it, all in 100%, or is it 10%, everything in between? If you want to share, you don't have to.
I will just say this. I'm very long Bitcoin. That's my primary investment, whether it's Bitcoin and Bitcoin proxies as well, because there are a lot of ways, through 401ks, IRAs, and Roths, to invest in different, before the ETFs, you could invest in different companies that also have some sort of function within the ecosystem as well. But that is something, but it's not, I think, a lot of people will talk about, to build wealth. Sometimes a part of that, other than time, is just having conviction and going really heavy into one thing. This would be my strongest conviction play over a long period of time. But, you have to go in with the mindset that you could lose everything, ultimately at the end of the day, just like people who lose their homes, right? Anything can really happen. And, a lot of the doomsdayers that come into, what if this happens, the world stops, all the computers shut down. Like, it just shows that you don't really understand blockchain technology, and you don't really understand sort of the magic behind Bitcoin and the cryptography behind it, and how it's immutable, and it's going to be here for the test of time.
I think it's interesting what you said too, like being able to leverage against it. I think it's very interesting, because now that it is, you can buy it on Fidelity via ETF. I mean, you can technically borrow against it to buy a house. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. So it definitely seems like it'll be here for long term, just on that alone. I guess that's probably one of the big things a lot of people were waiting for, is to have the ETF, to have a little bit more stability and a lot more money inflows, for sure. I wonder if, like, some of these, these NASDAQs, these S&Ps are going to start, or just these other smaller ETFs are going to start maybe requiring that they'll have to own a certain allocation, 1% in Bitcoin, or if that's happening.
Well, to that note, I mean, a lot of the high net worth individuals that places like BlackRock, Fidelity, that they're starting to make that part of what is being involved in a standardized portfolio. Having exposure to that. And there's a company by the name of MicroStrategy, ticker symbol MSTR. That is they originally started as an enterprise software company that did business analytics that has now become really like what we would consider a leveraged Bitcoin proxy. But they are, as of yesterday, and I might be wrong on this exact number, 388 in the S&P 500, but they haven't been accepted into the S&P 500. So the point I'm getting at is if they are, in terms of added to the S&P 500, there's going to be, really anybody who's invested in the S&P is going to have exposure to Bitcoin one way or the other. In my opinion, it's just inevitable at this point. And if you look at that, maybe I think it was like 2 years ago that stock was maybe trading at $130 and now it's at $1,600. It was just at about $2,000 a couple of weeks ago. It's been that's actually one of my largest equity positions as well. So it's been one thing to watch that ride, and it's really interesting because Michael Saylor, the CEO of that company, is doing something very different than what anyone else is doing. Is they're actually using debt, selling convertible senior notes against their stock and against the company, specifically to purchase more Bitcoin, which is just crazy. So something to keep in mind if you're looking at it. And what's interesting is like I think Merrill Edge just allowed it, but like Vanguard, for example, if you invest with Vanguard, they don't allow you to invest in the ETF products as of yet. So there's still a lot of money that's sort of on the sidelines that can't even get into having ETF exposure right now.
I see. Gotcha. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Especially when you're so in the know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I know to tie it back to cards, right? Okay. That's sort of where I started to look at, the Robinhood Gold 3%, or even a 2% card. I mean, if I want to sit there and take my 2% and just, manually each week do it, the goal would be to automatically invest into one of those ETFs and buy fractional shares. So each week, whatever money that you have earned or accrued from those cards, obviously I need to sort of work out how that actual process works to sort of be hands off, because the Blockfi card was great when it was 1.5% back on everything Bitcoin. It just made it really simple to accrue Bitcoin. The Gemini card has the different methods too, but just 3% across the board with Robinhood is very, very interesting to me in terms of looking at that if I'm not really looking at wanting to grab a sub, I guess, in that sense.
What do you think about the that Crypto.com card? Is that anything to look at?
Yeah, I mean, it's great because it's not a credit card. It's like sort of like the Fold card. It's a prepaid, debit card. So you do load money onto it. I've never personally had it. I have a few friends that have it. It's actually a really heavy metal card. You can get a really heavy metal version of it. It's a really cool looking card, but it also requires you to kind of invest money into what's called their CRO token and stake it, which means you basically can't touch it for a while, and it just needs to sit there as it accrues some interest and whatnot. But yeah, that company's based out of Singapore, if I'm not mistaken. And even though they have an arena, FTX also had an arena. And I'm just personally not of the liking of you become a little more cautious and a little bit more vigilant about where you're leaving your money at, and sort of where you want to assess the risk. And also, I wouldn't even just use just one exchange. You never want to keep all your eggs in one basket.
I see. Oh, and also, I guess on that, before I move over, you keep everything in well, I guess you're buying stuff in Fidelity, whatnot. Do you keep a lot of things in cold storage as well?
Oh yeah. Okay. Bitcoin, the actual Bitcoin sits in cold storage. Again, the saying "not your keys, not your coin" is very true. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and there's a lot of things that you'll learn in that process. What they call OPSEC, your operational security. Some might even say the fact that I'm talking about Bitcoin is a little bit too much exposed. But again, at the end of the day, it makes it easy if you don't want to worry about being your own bank. Now again with these these ETFs that exist, you can have it in your Robinhood account right now. When trading does resume on Monday. So.
Gotcha. So that's interesting, and I know I could probably dig very deep on this because I'm just curious about it in general. But to bring it back a little bit, I also wanted to mention, because off camera you mentioned, on your first video, on your channel, you talked about traveling to like Europe, Asia, a lot of these different places. So if you want just a little more lighter note, what is some of the favorite places that you've kind of vacationed around the world so far?
So I'm half Japanese, so maybe this was me. I've always wanted to go to Tokyo. So in 2017, it just everything aligned in the sense that EDC, one of the major festivals for electronic music, had a festival in Tokyo. So it was EDC Tokyo. Spent 2 weeks there and then 1 week in Kyoto while I was out there. Flew United Polaris, so that was a really cool experience getting out there. Yeah, I mean, Tokyo was probably the coolest city. I want to go back actually within the next year or so. That would be a great place to revisit. And I've seen a lot of great videos. I feel like JP Knowledge has dropped some really great, experience videos of his experiences in Tokyo too, and him getting out there in the flight. So I would like to go back out there. I also did a Europe trip. After I graduated college, I backpacked through Europe for a little over a month, toured 5 different countries while I was out there. And I really loved Italy. I mean, there's just so much to see historically while I was out there. But I think the best sort of hidden gem for me was actually the Czech Republic. I mean, the dollar goes a long way, and this was a while ago. So I can't speak of anything, at least even within the last 10 years, because that was a while ago. But I had an absolute blast, and so that would be some of the locations. And at the time when I stayed in Italy, the person I was backpacking with, I wasn't staying in hostels. He was actually a Marriott employee. So I had we stayed at any 5-star hotel for really dirt cheap while we were out there on his employee discount, which kind of ties into originally why I was more cashback focused, was because I kept money on the side, knowing that if I traveled with one of my friends, or he could set me up with the discount at Marriott to get, or Marriott, I'm probably saying it wrong, to get the employee discount there. And that actually goes a lot longer than any of the way that your points are going to go. I mean, there were times where he was getting 60-70% off. This was a while ago, but he was getting incredible deals, and we always took advantage of that.
That's awesome. I love that. But you said, so you were backpacking though. I feel like maybe that's normal for you, but that doesn't sound normal to me. So what does that essentially mean to be backpacking? So you throw on a backpack and then you now are somehow making it to 5 different countries. How are you doing that? Are you hitchhiking? Or are you just does that mean you're just flying to these places? What are you doing?
It was taking the Euro, so I wasn't hitchhiking. Yeah, I could see the connotation with that. No, I wasn't like, putting my thumb out saying, take this American to a different country right now. No, it was taking the Eurorail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I started in Amsterdam, flew there, and went through different cities in Germany. Switzerland, going through the Swiss Alps, seeing the Czech Republic, and then Italy, ending the trip on Italy. So that was a really good time. But I've been hearing so many good redemptions of people going to Ireland, like Luke talking about that recently. And after seeing a recent, video of one of the DJs, actually, like he was actually performing on the cliffs of Moher. I'm probably butchering the name, and I apologize, but Ireland's on my to-do list now. It wasn't originally on it as at least a top 5 location, but somewhere I would definitely like to go.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like Ireland maybe gets slept on. I don't really hear about it too often.
Got to see Stonehenge too.
Oh, that's over there? Really? I don't know that. That's in Ireland?
Am I wrong on that? If I'm wrong on
that's
that, then
cool.
Man, I'm really I'm pretty sure. Now you got me doubting. Now you got me questioning that.
No, I don't know. I'm just like, wow, that sounds crazy. So that's cool. I've always wanted to do something like that. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm gonna imagine there's a lot of, like, what's the biggest? I mean, is there like a big downside to? Oh, Stonehenge is in England. Michael Wong says. I don't know. So not downside, but like moving to all these different not moving, but traveling throughout these 5 different countries that you went to. How long are you staying in each one?
So I spent a lot more time in Italy. I think there was just more to sort of see there. But I spent the most time in Amsterdam for about a week, and then it was just a couple of days littered throughout each country. And because it was 5 countries in 4 weeks, so it was roughly around a week. But the least amount of time I spent was in Switzerland. That was actually only a couple of days. And even back then, I mean, the dollar did not go far out there. I mean,
No.
this was like, 10 plus years ago, a sandwich was like the equivalent of like $28, $30 US. So that's a place to definitely have your cash back ready, because you're going to be spending some cash when you're in Switzerland.
Jeez. Seems so. It seems so. I've been seeing some videos about people going out there. Yeah, it seems very, very expensive. I think that's where a lot of the big YouTubers party now, like Logan Paul and those people. I hear that they go over there. So I'm sure there's a lot of wealthy folks out there too. But this was okay. So this was 10 plus years ago. Were you so that's basically what you were doing then. So were you using just all your cash back just for these, everything that you're paying for there, just your food and I guess the discounted Marriott stays and everything?
Exactly. And that's when, situationally, it didn't make sense for me to have miles. It made sense just to make sure that I had cash set aside and, using cash back as, for the statement credits, and then just actually mentally separating and physically separating that money on the side as if I was getting it at, right into your bank account. Because I think that that's one thing, is looking at sort of the net of it. I think there's a lot of psychology and the way that you look at your points and your money. They definitely go hand in hand. And so you just sort of, and I've seen Stan sort of talk about this when he kind of looks at the valuations of things, is looking at what's the sort of the net outcome versus, people, and there's a lot more flexibility when you get true cash back that gets deposited into a checking account. But if you're using that cash back just to pay your bill anyways, it's kind of circular, right? Like you're already using that cash back as for like a statement credit, right? You're already using that towards paying down your bill if you're like most of us and responsible people who, pay their balances in full. So the statement balance, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. Seems like we had some folks who went there. Solani said Salisbury, UK, for Stonehenge. And Juan said Stonehenge is awesome. Been there 4 times. Everbury Circle is magic. Wow.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. Definitely.
Thank you. I knew I was wrong on the geography there. So thanks. Everybody.
Unreal. We can't forgive you on that. We can't forgive.
Everything else said, just throw it out the window.
That's right. It's over. Everything's over. So that was like the main topics that I wanted to hit with you. The things that I was the most curious. As Stan comes in, said point is overrated. Just mentioned you. Oh, that's funny. Is there any topics that you wanted to bring up for me or for anybody who's watching?
Yeah. I think one of the most slept on debit cards is the Cash App card. And here's sort of my thinking on this. For anyone who has the Cash App card, they have frequent what are called boost offers. Their boost offers range from anywhere between 5 to 10% at places you might already shop at. And this kind of plays into the, if, say, for example, you spent $50 at Walgreens and you're getting a 10% boost there, it actually only takes out $45 of the charge on your debit card. So instead of getting 10% back, you're actually getting 10% off, which I think makes a significant difference. And if you're creative with it, for example, when I talked about looking at things over time, there are times where I would actually I'd go to Walgreens and just pick up an Amazon gift card at basically what I considered 10% off, and then loading my card that way. That's kind of why I've never actually grabbed the Amazon Prime Visas, because I've just had so many ways to either get 10 or 5% off specifically. I know that's it's kind of a funny way to look at it, and there's some limitations to it, but I think it's a super slept on card. And there's times where they've just got crazy bonuses or, weird card boosts that really allow you to save a lot of money. So if you're really strategic with it and you kind of have a good take on the gift card strategy, because I think that's one thing that's sort of like in this gray area for a lot of people is using and buying gift cards. And you've got things like the Target. I think they're calling it something else. I think it was the Target Red Card, but they're calling it like the Target Circle. I think it just rebrands as of tomorrow, actually, where you basically get 5% off at everything in Target. 5% right off the bat, which I personally would rather it just be 5% off rather than 5% back. Because I'm just, I think there's a big difference there for looking at if it's purely cash back, 5% cash back versus 5% off. I would love to hear people's, idea on that in the comments. What would they rather have, 5% off or 5% like just straight up cash back? So Target's great because they also have tons of gift cards there too. I think there's a lot of, if you kind of shop at the, we're creatures of habit. If you shop at certain places very often, it makes sense to maybe have a couple gift cards in preparation. And this is one thing I actually wanted to bring up, and something I haven't heard many people talk about, or I haven't really heard anyone talk about it. Not to say that I started this, but I actually have I have the MX Gold and I have the Capital One Saver One. All right. So with Capital One, the Saver One card, awesome card. You know, you get Uber One for free included with the card. And then I also have the MX Platinum. So the reason I'm bringing that up is I get about $15, you know, through the first 11 months deposited. $25 deposited into my Uber account. So what I do is I wait for honestly, I want to say at least every other week, there's a 40 or 50% off grocery through Uber Eats, as long as you order it delivery. So there's actually a Costco location within a reasonable distance that allows you to count it as a grocery. So I can actually shop online through the Uber Eats app for Costco items, grab up to 40 to 50% off. And it's usually at a limit of like $40, but $40 off to get groceries I was normally going to get. So it's a way for me to stack utilizing those Uber credits that I guess we've technically already prepaid for. And then if I have deals on finding gift cards for Uber, I'll load up that Uber account knowing that I'll spend roughly, you know, 100, maybe 150 on food there through Uber, and then use that to either grab food items, and even you can grab electronics. And I know the first thing that people will talk about is, you know, what is the additional fee? What are they charging? And I've physically done the calculations on going in store, at least into my warehouse, because different warehouses will actually have different pricing. That usually the items were only kind of upcharged an extra about 3.5% roughly. So if we look at, you know, utilizing the credits that sometimes if I'm not taking an Uber, I need to use those credits. I don't want to lose those every month. It's been a great alternative for me to either grab, you know, any item at Costco that they allow to deliver. And then if I run out of gift cards there, because I'm getting 10% back on the Saver One, you're technically getting 10% off at Costco there too. Minus the upcharge that they have there. So yeah, I was just looking at it just yesterday, just as an example for this call. You know, in the AirPods Gen 2 Pros, I think something like that, they were about $200 if you were to buy them directly at Costco. If you walked into the warehouse, where they were $207 through Uber Eats. So, you know, if you were to factor in the $40 less that you'd be getting off with that 40% off of grocery, right? It really works out really well. So there's ways that you could actually be kind of strategic with how you're getting things in. And maybe there's other grocery stores. I haven't tried it because Costco's been so lucrative for me to utilize that to buy non-grocery items, but let Uber give you the Uber charge, and then you're not paying for delivery fee, you're just paying for tip at that point, because Uber One does cover the delivery fee. So a great way to you know, have it's almost like it's like the Avengers, right, when they're all teaming up, right, to get something going on at the end. It's like the Saver One, you know, meets the Amex Gold and the Amex Platinum with your Costco membership and your Uber Eats discount. So it's just a fun way to sort of stack things, and I think that's what makes this whole game so much fun, is like finding different strategies. I mean, you'll see things on Flyer Talk in your Discord channel. Frequent Miler has a lot of great strategies. I mean, I think this is the most helpful community out of a lot of other subjective hobbies that I've had. No one seems to be, other than the occasional troll, you know, no one seems to be providing really bad information. I do think sometimes there's repetitive questions, but you know, we all start somewhere, and ultimately, you know, there's so many different ways to go about getting items that we would normally get, right? I mean, like, for example, I think you might have brought up in one of your videos, but like Uber Eats isn't really that much more expensive if you're doing Chipotle pickup. Like, I know my Chipotle bowl is only like 70 cents more, maybe a 70-cent difference, which really doesn't make, you know, that much. So if I need to use the Uber credits, there's ways to use that along with any other promotions they have. So just always being mindful that, you know, you can connect these different ecosystems together. You can stack different promotions in order to save more money.
Okay. Sorry. Right at the end, you cut out just this, but I got everything. Yeah. No, you're good. So actually, I'll tie this together. And thank you, Icarus. Appreciate that. Sylvia, wait, what? Getting non-grocery items at Costco for a discount? Am I hearing that right? So I will say, Ninja, you I am someone who's done this as well. Right? Someone did talk about this, except I didn't mention Costco. I mentioned getting the 40% off Uber Eats for Target. However, no pickup though, which is like I'm losing money, but I don't have any other option. Although I wonder if I could do Costco, but I don't have a membership though. But I don't think it matters because I could do it if I do delivery or something. I don't know. We'll see. But yes, what he's talking about is a two-prong approach. Saver one, getting Uber One for free, and then getting the Amex Gold and Amex Platinum card, $25 a month, and then you stack that with like a 40% off coupon that Uber sends to you every now and again, using that for groceries, but at these stores that have non-groceries as well. I've been doing this actually at Target to get just regular household stuff like paper towels and shade like razors or something, plus food and stuff like that. So, and yeah, I've done the math like you did, like maybe a few percent upcharge, but the 40% just kind of trumps that every time, at least in my experience. So. And so Uber Cash no longer is used for like food. It's just like, well, restaurants and stuff. It's used for groceries and whatnot. Very smart though. I think that's really good.
Yeah, and I think I also have the Amex Business Gold. So for me, if I don't have something at an Office Depot, I need to I'll grab like an Uber gift card, knowing that I'm intentionally going to be using that money anyways, and it's money I would be spending at an Uber. So just a great way to sort of look at maybe some of these credits that get exhausting with Amex, right? How can I use this maybe in a strategy to leverage that with the things I'm already doing without really having to go out of my way to go do that, especially if luckily they're geolocated around the same places. So it's not really much of a problem for me. And it's kind of fun, it's kind of fun to be, discussing and thinking of these different ways to sort of stack promotions and discounts. So yeah, it's really cool. And one last thing I do want to bring up, Discover Cashback, because I know the Discover card with the rotating categories, a lot of people have that card. I usually actually get gift cards back. Like for example, Domino's. I really like Domino's. My family likes Domino's. So when I'm getting pizza, it's Domino's. But the reason I bring that up is like, you can buy gift cards sometimes at like 20% off, like what would normally be a $10 gift card is only, $8 of your cash back. So you're actually getting a lot more value out of those. There's a lot of you can even get Amazon gift cards at 5% off. So if you look at it, you're getting more than your 1 cent per point. Obviously it's not crazy margins, but if you're really trying to maximize the cash back there, and again, if you're going to shop at Amazon or there's a lot of popular retailers there, don't sleep on gift cards. The only thing you risk is just not losing that gift card. But luckily, since they're all done digitally, you can add them right to your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet. So it makes it easy to keep organized that way too.
That's also an interesting tip. Although one thing I wanted to go back on your last point, just because I'm unaware of myself, is Keith, what card do you use for the Costco stack? So I thought they don't take Amex. So just so I know, when you do it through Uber, because I never did it with Costco, you can set it to pickup so that you'll just go there and you'll pick it up, or you can do delivery through the app and then they'll deliver it to you.
So Costco does require, to get that 40% off, it does require delivery. So that is something I do factor into the math, right? Like there is obviously delivery cost in terms of what I'm tipping them, because the delivery fee is negated with Uber One. But you could actually use this to help work on different subs if you wanted to take advantage of that, for example, a 40% off coupon, right? Because they don't take, Costco doesn't take Amex directly, but the purchase is processed through Uber. So you're actually getting, it's looked at as an Uber charge. That's why I tend to use the Saver one if I'm not working on a sub, because the Saver one's giving me that 10% back technically through Uber. So I'm getting 10% back at Costco in that scenario.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Oakland actually says he has 40% off grocery right now.
Let's go.
Yeah, we might all have it right now. I'm going to have to use it for this month.
Yeah.
Or did I use it already? I don't know.
I just used one a couple days ago, and then another one just popped up. Like they throw them out like candy, honestly.
At least once a month. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this was multiple times. Yeah, this is already twice in April. So highly recommend to check that. And it's one thing to keep in mind, when you're looking about tipping your drivers, and I know there's tipping culture here. They have to actually go out and physically grab the items, because I asked them this because I wanted to know if, Costco already has it in a bag ready for them to go. Like, no, they actually have to go into the store, find each item. So just keep that in mind, when they actually are really providing a service. They're not just picking up and driving it. Something just to keep in mind if that's something that matters to you.
Yeah, like Icarus says here, like if they have to Uber Eats and do delivery for a new lawnmower, you might want to tip them a little extra because lawnmowers are, how's that going to work? I wonder if you could. They have certain things that they don't allow you to get on these apps, I've noticed, but I wonder if you could get like crazy, like a TV from Costco or something. That would be, that'd be a funny video.
Yeah, I mean, I know you could buy a MacBook through Costco. So if you wanted to, again, the difference there pays off really well because you're spending a lot and you're getting, if you're utilizing your credits, maybe you got an extra $40 because it does limit the 40% at $40 usually, and you're getting 10% with like a Saver One. I mean, you're really saving a lot of money in that situation. That's
a good point. That's something I might have to think about.
For like a high ticket item. Point. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. That is a good point. Interesting. Actually, and Sylvia also mentioned, I forgot to say hi, but what's up? What's up, Sylvia? We'd love to see a video on how you guys do this stacking and also a video on using cards on shopping portals. Seems like you can rack up a ton of points on shopping portals. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Michael Wong just did a good video on that. I really liked his video on stacking. It's a great, it's cool when all the stars align and you can really take advantage of, Rakuten plus in-store cashback or maybe an AMEX offer or Chase offer along with the card. And then there's like other places like Ibotta where you can submit the receipt afterwards. I mean, there's so many different ways to add to get something back out of it. Cause these are basically technically like rebates at this point, but, stacking is, that's like a hobby in itself. I feel like it's one thing to accrue points and it's another thing to stack coupons and stack promotions.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. I guess a few people also, Michael Wong, JP Knowledge, I'm forgetting who else does that, but yeah, I've seen a lot of good stacking lately for sure. Oakland said I only have Major, Target, and Fresh Buy Market. Well, I use Target, so I mean that's okay. Another thing I did recently too, which on the topic of stacking was, so when you have like a Chase Freedom Flex, Freedom Unlimited, Sapphire Preferred, Sapphire Reserve, they'll give you a monthly Instacart credit. So. Well, sorry, the Reserve gives you monthly Instacart credit. I have the Preferred, and she has the Flex. Or we both have Preferreds, actually. And you'll get every quarter $15 towards Instacart. So, like a few days ago, I noticed Food Lion actually sent me a, I think 35% off coupon, and I can go and pick up through Instacart. So it didn't have to be delivery. Oh, no, it didn't have to be delivery. No, I messed that up. Yeah. So it has to be delivery. So basically, it had to spend $100. So $100 at Food Lion through Instacart. The upcharge was a little bit, but with the Sapphire Preferred, at least for right now, you have a membership. So you pretty much save 50% on the cost by having the actual, the membership towards Instacart. So the upcharge is really not that much at all. Delivery, yeah, you got to give them maybe $5, $10, whatever the amount is. We gave them $10. And so that was discounted. So it went from like $105 down to, $70? Is that the right? Yeah, $70. But then also I had the Sapphire Preferred's $15 quarterly credit that hit in April. So then that was down to, I guess $55 for $100 worth of groceries. So, I mean, it's pretty good, say 45% after factoring in delivery, delivery tips and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of little things like that. Of course, you gotta, want to go to Food Lion, but I do. So I have a good time with Food Lion and with all their, I heard some people mention it's the trash food. I think Chris said that many years ago. So I get it. I definitely get it. I said Major like how I thought Calby taught me that. He was like, I think it's Major. So it's Meyer. Okay. So thank you, Calby. Appreciate that. Lonnie. Oh, sorry, Lonnie. That was the other one I was thinking of. Love Point Stacking. He does a lot on his channel, Sylvia, as well. If you want to check him out, he's really good with the portals. So if you want like crazy portals, go hit up Call Me Lonnie right here. Absolutely. Keith says, I wish New York would allow Costco to sell wine. I'd use it to stack to buy premium French wines. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Lord. Sylvia's y'all stop gatekeeping. Do some update video on this. I did a few. I had one that was really good. If you want, at least for me personally, one that I felt was fine. it was moving into an apartment, how to save money. Like if you type in Anthony Venture, like moving out, I think you'll find it. And I stacked like a million different things for when we were buying groceries, PayPal through the Freedom Flex, all different things. So, but otherwise, go to JP Knowledge, go to Lonnie, go to Michael Wong. And Chad, Chad also has some good videos as well. Hit them up, absolutely. So that was great, man. So I think we got a lot of good info out there, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of different topics as well. I knew exactly how this was going to go. You're a very cool guy, very smart, very intelligent, speak very well. So I was very excited to do this with you. And I know we were planning it for like a little bit, but eventually the stars aligned and we made it happen. So I appreciate you doing this with me today, Ninja.
No, thank you so much, Anthony. And I appreciate everyone that stayed here as we're seeing, the comments still in. I know this is, we're hitting about 2-hour mark here. And this is maybe some of the first time a lot of you might have physically seen me. If not, I mean, I love the fact that, this is one channel where you're getting, people that aren't content creators, but have really great ideas or just have different experiences in general. To talk about them on your show, especially because, major props for you doing this on a weekly basis, and having this be really, it's like working out your credit card and your content creator muscle each week. And I know we really appreciate it as part of the community. And I think, the Discord as a whole is like evolving, and I've seen, it evolve over even the last year so much. And it's really awesome to see that, Anthony. It says a lot to grow a community, especially when there's people located all over the country, all over the world, and of all shapes and sizes and every type.
Thank you, man. But it's not about me. It's about you. No, but I appreciate your kind words, man. That's all I care to do is just highlight people way smarter than me. That's all I really care about, because I get how much of a newbie I can be in this space. Although now that I have so many people on, I just feel like I'm so much smarter now. I've learned so much from everybody. Like, now I could get lawnmowers at Costco for cheap. I'm kidding.
Yes.
But so many different things that you've taught me just on and off camera as well. It's great, and I love everybody that definitely comes out. So I appreciate you. Should we go subscribe to your channel?
Yeah, that would be excellent. I am going to put so I was recently at the Denver Capital One Lounge. Phenomenal experience. Highly recommended. I took some content or some video, recorded some content while I was there, and I'll be posting here shortly. To be determined on when that is. But also stayed at the Art Hotel in Denver, which through the FHR program, which was, we talk about stacking. That was stacking FHR benefits with benefits that were included with the amenity fee there, along with diamond benefits and some other things. So really great experience there too, and things that I'm going to definitely expand on here as well. So yeah, my channel's over there at Wealth of Opportunity. More to come with that. And again, just thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Absolutely, man. And I just dropped it in the chat just here. So if you guys want to check them out, we'll see some stuff pretty soon. So appreciate everybody. Jonathan, thank you for the kind words. I saw your words earlier as well. You said Ninja's a cool guy. Appreciate that. Oh, Keith, sorry, wait a second. Keith with the $2 super chat. Where can we find the no lifetime language Hilton links?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any floating around right now. I could totally be wrong. And that's why I love this community. Someone will bring up that question. And if anyone has those, it's great to see if those are available right now. I know that they kind of come in, waves. There'll be times where they'll have multiple no lifetime languages kind of going on across AMEX, the ecosystem. So when those pop up, we'll definitely, that's where keeping in touch with the Discord channel, the Venture Discord channel is going to really be important.
Gotcha. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely in the description. If you guys aren't already joined, go for it. So I appreciate you, Keith, John. Oh, whoa. Oh my God. What the hell?
Oh,
Chad,
wow.
What are you doing, man? That's crazy. What the? Am I seeing this right? Am I? I've been on the two phones. Whoa. That's mind blowing.
He's working on a sub.
He's working on it. Oh, right. Yeah. Right. Damn.
That's awesome.
In the rose gold color too. Oh my God, Chad. Come on, man. What are you, crazy? Don't be doing stuff like that. Oh my God. Thank you so much. What the hell? Now when you come here, now I'm definitely buying you dinner. I'm definitely buying you dinner when you come to Greenville with that right there. Oh my God. Oh wow. seriously, thank you so much, Chad. That really means a lot, man. That's not doing anything. I'm just making a lot of shorts. That's how you get the 5K. So, wow. Sorry, Ninja. But that's crazy. Wow. Thank you, Chad, man.
Awesome.
I appreciate
that
you.
is awesome.
I'm gonna have to hit you off camera after this. And everybody, who hit me up today, thank you so much. Jesus, I don't even want to. Oh my God, what do I say to something like that? That's ridiculous. All right, let me get composed, and I'll text them after. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Oakland, Sylvia, Xavier, Icarus for being here. Jonathan, Michael Wong on his long drive home after just meeting him in person. He made it home nice, safe and sound. Cesar, Lonnie, appreciate all you guys, and Ninja again one more time for being here, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.